Now we're recording. All right, we're recording. We're good to go. There's gonna be a lot of this, guys. So they wanted me to be the tech guy. I was like, come on, guys, that's not me. That's why we got him over there. He's in the back. All right, so back to it, right? So who in their right mind would say, yeah, absolutely, man, go for it. I don't even know. Yeah. Let's do a subject to. I'm gonna keep the mortgage in my name, meaning that if you foreclose on the property, my credit gets affected. Who would actually do that? So the situation has to be unique. It has to kind of warrant that solution. There's a lot of times where people start hearing about the subject twos and the deed in lieu of or whatever, and they say, you know what, hey, that's going to be my strategy. Now I'm going to go cold call 1,000 people and try to do this strategy. That's not necessarily how it works, right? Remember, everything in investing is just, it has to fit a unique situation. Anything in sales and anything investing, we are problem solvers, right? So we're going to solve that client's problem with a very unique solution. So a subject to strategy, a fix and flip, a wholesale, or whatever, they're all just unique tools that you put on your tool belt and you pull it out at the right occasion, right? And the subject to is the same matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, we obviously talked about the broad scope. What is it? So we're going to talk about our ideal scenarios. Okay, we're going to cover that both for short and long term. And then we're going to go into our pitfalls and things to look out for. And then we're going to go into a step-by-step action item, or action list, if you will, task list, for you to go out. And by the end of this Pints and Properties, you should damn near be able to go do your own subject to from start to finish. Cool. See, people keep texting me. So bear with me, guys. Again, it's going to be a lot of this going on. So I'm just going to make sure that everything's right. So before we just dive all up in it, let me see if anybody has any comments or questions. I see my man Ruben is on. Bear with me for 1 second, guys. Tim, where's the chat group? Yeah, because like it already disappeared. The internet is super slow. Bear with me, guys. All right. There we go. There we go. See, and then I was calling it a chat group, and it's actually a comment section. So don't judge me. All right, so y'all gonna see Shelby's name pop up, but that's me. Yes, all right, so now we're good, we're good. So yes, if you guys got any questions, let me know. So let's dig into it, guys. We know what we're covering. Let's talk about ideal scenarios, both short and long term. All right, so an ideal scenario. All right, an ideal scenario would be, hey, I'm trying to sell this home. I just bought this property, I'm trying to sell it, and I know that I have a mortgage on it for $100,000, but it's only worth $100,000. So now if I was to try to sell the property, I'm going to have to pay for the realtor commissions. I'm going to have to pay, attorney fees. I'm going to have to pay the taxes on it. I'm essentially going to have to bring a couple $1,000s to closing, okay? Because there's no equity, right? When we discuss equity, I'm sure everybody knows, but we're not going to leave anybody behind. So equity is just the difference between the market value of the property and the amount on the loan that's left. Well, the VA buyers, as many of you guys are aware of or participated in yourselves, we're going to buy something with zero down. That means we bought it at full value. We've got no equity, got zero equity. All right. So we go to try to sell it and says, hey, man, I'm going to need $5,000, $10,000 just to close. I don't have $5,000 or $10,000. What can we do? Well, you're not going to sell it to a wholesaler, right? Because he wants a little difference in it. There's no difference. You're not going to flip it because there's no equity. There's no sweat equity. There's no forced depreciation. Maybe you can rent it. Maybe, but what happens if, the rent scenario doesn't work, right? And so in that scenario, you can see that that seller is in a weird position, and that seller needs a solution like this, right? And so essentially you'll be able to identify an opportunity to use a subject to when basically the equity is so low, or the market value versus the loan amount is equivalent, that the seller is in a distressed position where they can't get out. That's a good scenario for a subject to, period. All right. Now we're going to talk about that's the scenario. Now, how do we kind of look at what's the best way to use it short term, right? And then what's the best way to use it long term? So short term. And what I mean by short term is, all right, hey, I'm the seller. I got my house and I need to give it, you're the investor. You're coming to me and saying, hey, Mike, I got a solution for you. We're going to do a subject to. Thank you, Mr. Investor. All right. I need this loan paid off or whatever. I need this out of my name completely because of whatever's going on in the past. I need it in 12 months, right? In 12 months. That's basically 1 year. To me, that's short term. Anything under 1 year is short term. So some of the scenarios we can look at, because remember, it's basically I owe too much on the property. It's not worth it, or there's some other hassle or something else that I can't do a regular sale, right? That's the scenario. So short term. A solution could be, all right, well, I know that there's maybe some deferred maintenance on the property. Maybe it's kind of beat up. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you subject to the property. Obviously, you're taking care of the payments, but now it's deeded over to you. So now you go in and you haven't really put any money down to purchase the property, but you got the property. Now you do the renovations, right? Now you do the renovations and think of it almost like, private money, if you will. You already have the property. You don't have to finance the property. Now you do the renovations and then you sell it, right? Or you refi it, right? The Burr strategy, yippee-ki-yay, right? So essentially the short-term play, a good scenario would be that you're going in to do something to the property quickly to bring up the value or, fix what the issue is. Because remember, the value versus what's owed on it is the issue. Fix that issue and then you get rid of it, right? Or you get rid of the loan, the existing loan on the property. So the best ways would be sell that sucker or refi it, right? Or do a burr. So that's a good short-term play, all right? Now a long-term play, pretty simple, anything over 12 months. This is now a relationship that you've entered with that seller. That seller saying, hey, I trust you enough that I'm going to let you hold on to this property here and continue to make these payments for years to come, and I trust you. You've entered a relationship where you have to give them updates. When you're ready to sell in the back end, you still got to get them to provide some information. We'll get into all that good stuff here. So now what does that look like? What's a good scenario for that, right? And so let's just say the seller is like, I really do not care what happens to this property. I just don't want it anymore. I don't have to make any money on it. I don't have to make any cash flow. If you can take it out of my hands and, and just go along, take care of it, then I'm fine. One of the considerations there is the seller also has to be comfortable. It says, hey, I'm not buying a house. I'm not buying a house anytime soon. For all of you who have purchased a primary home, you know that the lender is going to say, all right, well, how many homes do you currently have? And how much is your mortgage on each one of those homes versus your income, right? So if that seller in that same situation said, all right, yep, just take it. You have to make sure if you say, hey, a 3-year timeline, that he's not going to want to try to purchase a home within that time frame, and it's going to negatively affect him, right? So you got to have those conversations. This is a relationship. Y'all are tight. Y'all are tight, right? So you got to keep that in mind. So what does that look like? Well, if we're going to hold it for a long time, does it cash flow, right? Is the mortgage amount or does the market rent exceed the mortgage amount enough that you're actually putting money in your pocket? And the seller is okay with you holding it for a while. Okay, great. Well, let's look at the math, right? How much would it cash flow? How much? What kind of condition is it in? How much money do I have to put into repairs? You could do all that and make sure it's a good deal. And then you want to look at the timeline and say, all right, in 3 years, is the market going to adjust? Is the mortgage going to be paid low enough? Is there something else I can do to kind of increase value over those 3 years to get to a point where now at the end of the 3 years, I can now sell it and get the problem fixed for the seller, right? So those are two different scenarios, short-term and long-term. Ultimately, you have to understand that a subject to is a temporary fix. This is not a long-term play. Now, hey, anything can happen for sure. And you might find you an investor that says, yeah, hold my loan in my name for 30 years. I don't care. You might, but I'm gonna say that's kind of a far stretch. Okay, so before we go, so we covered, what it is. We two different scenarios, short and long term. And before we get into the pitfalls or things to kind of look out for, right? Like those red flags, I'm gonna check the messages, and y'all gotta bear with me, man. All right, here we go. Can most use any attorney to close subject to? Can you use any attorney to close subject twos? So we're actually going to get into some of the attorney stuff when we go to the step-by-step piece. A long answer to that is yes, any attorney can absolutely do it. They could, but do they know what the hell's going on, right? It's just like anything else. For example, you can go to an attorney that maybe does real estate closings all the time, and maybe they don't know how to draft seller financing addendum, or they've never drafted a seller financing addendum. Me personally, I wouldn't use that attorney anymore, but I'm just saying everybody could, all of them could legally do it, is my point, right? You just want to make sure that they understand what that transaction looks like, because we as investors or as real estate professionals, just like the Army, we love to create names like the Burr. The Burr was some creative name, David Green or Brandon Turner made on Bigger Pockets. But what do lenders call it? Lenders call it a cash out refi. Common use, common practice for centuries. It's been done since dawn of time. So it's like, okay, well, if we went in as an investor and we say, hey, Mr. Banker, I want to do a Burr, are you going to an attorney and say, hey, I want to do a Burr? They're going to look at you like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? So it's the same thing with the subject twos and the D in lieu ofs. If you understand what the concept is, make sure the attorney understands the concept. And yes, you can use anybody. I actually have a good tip of who I recommend that I'll be putting out towards the end. Okay. Is there a Zoom meeting code? Brother, I don't know, Mike. I'm sorry, man. I have no clue. If somebody's in the chat and wants to give them a Zoom meeting code, by all means, throw them that bone. All right. So now we're going to go into the pitfalls. We're going to go jump right into the red flags, things to kind of be weary of, right? So the biggest thing anybody who has studied subject to, you've probably heard this already, is, hey, what happens if the bank calls the loan due? All right. So the bank, every mortgage, well, most mortgages, I'm pretty sure it's everyone, but you never know. They have something called a due on sale clause. They say, hey, if this property that this mortgage is attached to would ever change ownership, that's the key word, change ownership, then the bank has the right to call the entire loan balance due and give you a certain time frame. It could be 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, whatever. They have the right, and typically you can find that due on sale clause in the fine writing. So now we have to be careful, right? What if we do this whole subject to thing and there's a mortgage amount of, let's just say $150,000 left on the home. Everything else works fine. Numbers work great. Yippee-ki-yay. You go in there and you're doing maybe a long-term play. All right, let's say you're experiencing some cash flow and you're a year in, and all of a sudden the bank finally just looks back and like, hold up, wait a minute, you changed ownership. No, hell no. I want the full 150 due now. If not, we're foreclosing. Uh-oh, because now we're in trouble, right? Yeah, you might be out of money, but the owner is going to get foreclosed on. That's going to stick with their record, their credit report and all that good stuff. I think it's for like 7 years or something like that. It's going to stick to them. You lose the house because it's going to foreclose. You're going to lose the house, and you just tarnish the relationship. They're not ever going to refer you out anymore. They're not going to do anything with you, right? So you want to be able to avoid that. You want to be able to avoid that due on sale clause. So we cover that in many different ways, right? So the first one, the first one is insurance. I know it's a little backwards, don't worry about it. But insurance, think about it, guys. When you buy a home, typically the mortgage payment includes taxes and insurance. And they make a monthly account. They got some funds that's escrowed, a beautiful thing, right? Insurance. If I sell you the house, remember, you're the investor, I'm the seller. If I sell you the house, the bank steady looks at the insurance policy every time they renew escrow, which is every year. in most cases. I'm sure there's probably a unique situation. But every year, they're going to look back at that insurance policy and they're going to be like, okay, is the home insured? What's the new policy amount? Let's put that in the escrow. They're going to look at it and be like, is Mike still the owner? That's the first thing that will get, I'm telling you from experience, it got my ass, right? Insurance, craziest thing. So insurance, the way we cover that is, since they still technically own that loan, they need to be the primary insured, right? And then you need to go on as the additional insured, right? Or your company or whoever as the additional insured, not the primary, right? By doing that, now we've gotten through the first hurdle, that damn insurance, okay? That's the first hurdle, because they don't care about who else is additionally insured. They do not care, right? A lot of times property management companies might be additionally insured or something crazy like that. Or if you're doing, you know, a fix and flip with some partners or something, more people can get on the policy. So they don't care about that. The primary is the main one, all right? The second one, and this is kind of like the big one, is how do you cover that name on the deed, right? How do you cover that? So there's many different ways you can do it, but typically when you do a deed transfer, whether it is a quit claim or a general warranty, that deed has to be recorded at the county courthouse. So now there's some more flags that potentially can kind of come into play. What I like to do, and what it was recommended from an attorney, and this is what I'm bestowing upon you guys, is what if we put a trust, right? What if we created a trust and the beneficiary of the trust was me or my company, right? So in this scenario, the trust, and think of the trust as just another entity. It's just an empty box. You can put whatever you want in the box, right? And in this case, we're putting the property in the box. But the trust is like this, is the outside of the box. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the original seller's face on that box. So when the bank looks through it real quick, they're gonna be like, oh, that's still the guy. Yep. They just kind of breeze over, right? And so what do I mean by putting their face on the box? Is we're gonna actually give the trust the client's name, right? And it doesn't have to be their whole, their whole government cheese name, first, middle, last. No, it can simply just be last name, trust, right? So if you guys were coming and buying my property, all right, first thing, you're gonna say, all right, Mike, I need to be additionally insured. Cool. All right, cool. What else you need? What else you need, investor? Well, we're going to build a trust. All right. And that trust is going to say Glaspie trust. Whatever. The beneficiary is going to be you or your company. Okay. And so now we've covered two beautiful things that most people are always like, how do you like, and I'm trying to kind of not say hide or mask. I think mask might be a better word for it, right? Because it's not like I'm saying be shady about it, but these are things that we're going to do to make sure that you can get to that end scenario, right? If it's a 6-month thing, hey, man, I just need 6 months. Let's just get it flipped out. It's a win-win for everybody, all right? And if it's a long-term thing, well, how do I protect myself year over year to get to that end scenario so we can, solve these problems? So typically people always, they're scared about that due on sale. And let's think about it now. Let's think about it. All right, so now we got our savings there, our protections there. And if the bank ever did like pick it up and call and say like, hey, what's going on? What happened? You can say, hey man, I couldn't afford it, right? But we're still making the payments. I just need 6 months, whatever, right? If they wanted to go through that whole process, they probably could. And they could probably say, nope, we still want to do on sale. They probably could. They could also say, well, no, we need to underwrite you, Mr. Investor, to make sure that you can actually make these payments, so forth and so on. But for the most part, these banks, they got millions of loans. They're not worried about one little old loan as long as it's getting paid, right? For the most part. All right, that's done. The other thing to look out for, which is extremely important, if it is not escrow, or even if it is, but back taxes. Look up back taxes, look up mechanics liens, secondary mortgages, all these things that you should know about anyway as an investor. But these specific things will tear you up if you're trying to do a subject to. Or one simple way or one kind of expedient way to do it is just have a title search done on the transaction, right? And if you have the right attorney, they're going to do that for you anyway, or they're going to highly recommend it. So you almost can't miss that one there. All right. So I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna look at the questions again. What are the questions we got? Long term sounds like something a family might want to do. Absolutely, that might be a great solution for somebody who is what's up, Vanessa? Somebody who's like maybe they don't have money for the down payment, right? Maybe it's a home that you guys been eyeing for a long time. There's a lot of different options for subject to where it can really come into play if it's the right scenario. I don't see like the back comments. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Oh, let me see something here. Oops. This is 13. I see the top comments, guys. So rewrite them again. If I didn't hit your comment or your question, I apologize. But I only see the top 7. And before I start breaking stuff, I'm just gonna keep on going. All right. So, all right. So we went over what it is, right? The ideal scenarios, right? We got our short, we got our long term, and we talked about some of the things to really look out for, right? Those due on sale clauses that we're going to protect primarily through making timely payments, obviously, and then the insurance, additionally insured, and the trust. The trust is going to be probably the easiest way. All right. So what does a trust actually look like as far as price point? By the way, it is not that much. I'm gonna give you guys a few seconds to guess real quick. How much do you think a full subject to, let's just say, there was no additional liens or anything like that. What would you say that a subject to may cost to do this whole little project? As I'm giving y'all a few seconds, I see Scott and yeah. Okay, make sure I'm looking at the right one. Yeah, so Scott, is it a land trust or some other kind? It is a land trust. How do you unload your subject to? Kind of like we discussed originally with you got two different, well, you got to always kind of find your exit strategy, because you can absolutely do a flip. You can absolutely, do maybe a cash out refi or a BRRRR. You can do a long-term hold, right? If you have that 2-year, 3-year play. So the biggest thing is you want to make sure that you're covering basically all of your bases. And if you are going to rent it long-term, which one works out for you, right? You can absolutely Airbnb one. I'm actually currently house hacking a subject to where I'm living in one side and I do Airbnb on the other side. It's a duplex. So, I mean, there's a subject to acquisition though, right? So you could do a whole bunch of good stuff with subject to once you get real creative. All right, I'm seeing these bids. I got 450, 450, 300, 300. I got a 600. All right, let's see. Y'all guys, $1. $1, Bob. Hey, Jordan, you're about to win that. Nah, man. All right, so a subject to itself, obviously prices may vary depending on the attorneys and depending on the states, but a subject to, from start to finish, all of the filing of the paperwork, attorney's fee, closing fees, and the trust itself cost about $1,800, $1,800, right? And that's it. Some of you guys may think that that's a lot, understandably so, but to think from start to finish, that's everything that you need to be concerned with. That's it, right? And that's also covering, I'm sorry, let me clarify there. That would be all the attorney's fees, potentially paying some of the I guess sellers, right? In that instance, like, okay, if you were buying it from me or doing the subject to from me, that's potentially covering some of my costs associated with recording and so forth. But that's it, top end. And again, it can change per state, per size of the property, per liens on the property, and so forth and so on. The trust itself is very affordable, right? I try to not say cheap, but it's very affordable, right at that $400 mark, right? 400, 500. But everything else involved, about $1,800. Right, so you guys can come out and grab some amazing properties. 3001. Nick, you was close, man. You was close. You was real close. and LeVar at 3000. Hey, maybe for you, maybe for Houston it is, LeVar. Shout out to LeVar, good dude, man. But that's basically it, right? That's it. It's not that much, and I guarantee you, as you continue to interview more and more attorneys, you might be able to find places to kind of skim a little off here, a little off there, or it may be a lot higher in some areas. But about $1,800 here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Not bad, not bad. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a step by step, day by day. That's a throwback for anybody else who want to finish the lyrics in the chat. All right. So we're going to talk about step by step. This is exactly how you're going to get you a subject to by tomorrow if you wanted to. All right. Let's see here. All right. So first and foremost, you're going to negotiate. Common sense, right? But let's be honest. When we're going and we're talking to a seller, most of the times it might be a cold call, right? Or a cold meet, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you talk to them a little bit, but the seller doesn't know you. They do not know you. Why the hell are they going to trust you? Why would they trust you, right? That is a big step in the negotiating part. So what do I mean by negotiating? Obviously, yes, we're going to make sure that the deal works. You're going to run all the numbers on the deal. Hey, where's the current balance of the mortgage? How much is the property worth? How much could it potentially be worth? How much is it going to cost to get to that point? What is the rents, right? Market rents. What is the monthly payment on the mortgage? You're going to get all that information on the property. Does the property make sense for a subject to? All right. Then we got to negotiate. They're going to say, all right, well, what happens if? What if? What if? They're going to throw a whole bunch. They don't know you. So wait, hold on. So what happens when you miss a payment? What happens if you don't sell it? Right? All these things. So let's dive into the negotiating piece. One thing that I highly recommend, well, this is something that I do because it always helps instill a little bit more confidence, just a little bit more, right? So I would say, I'm going to put 1 month's worth of mortgage payments into escrow as a backup precautionary, almost like a security deposit, if you will, right? That's in case I mess up. If I mess up, something happens, hey, I'm going to give it to them. All right, boom, that's going to make the payment. 2, I'm also going to, whatever my closing cost was to transfer everything over, I'm going to put that amount into escrow too. And we're going to sign this little nice little nifty little paper that says, hey, if I mess up and I miss the first month and I miss the second month, apparently I'm not, responsible enough to take care of this deal. I'm going to pay to transfer everything back over to you. All right. That's a great safety net for the seller. If that did happen, worst case, the seller got a couple months free of mortgage. Right? Not bad. Not bad. Okay. So those are some things that I would definitely consider negotiating. The last part, what happens if it doesn't sell? That's always a possibility. But if you held it for long term, let's say 2-year, 3-year thing, okay, cool. How did you benefit out of it first, right? What was your cash flow, so forth and so on? Did you recoup your losses, or did you recoup your money back, so forth, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, the seller missed out on 2 years, 3 years, 4 years worth of payments. Who could be mad at that, right? They can get that. Yeah, you guys can have it back, or you guys give me a few more months and I can continue to try to sell, right? There's always a thing that it may not sell, but you have to build in those kind of like pillars of trust, if you will, right? Because everybody says trust but verify, right? I mean, you can sound good on paper. They may be able to trust that you know what you're doing, but we're going to put in those little additional foundational pillars to say like, oh, okay, in case I do mess up. Look, here's this. It's hard stuff for them to actually have, right? All right, so first one's negotiate. Now, once you negotiate and everything's nice and pretty, then you're going to get the attorney involved ASAP, okay? You're not going to wait towards the end. Why? Is because that attorney needs to be there, like essentially on call, if you will, for the seller to ask all the additional questions that they may have, right? Because when it comes from an attorney, it's a lot more legit than coming from you. Let's just face it, right? Also, that attorney has to draft all of these documents. He has to make sure that, okay, well, if we're going to do a trust, what's actually on the deed, right? What's on the deed? What should the trust be named? Okay, great. What's the turnaround time? So forth and so on. When's the closing deadline, right? They need to work all this beautiful magic in, just like they would do essentially for any other real estate transaction, right? But you definitely want them in earlier in the process than later, because they can also correct you on things and say, nope, hey, this is too short. Hey, we're doing our title search. Remember we talked about that? So you definitely want to get the attorney in again to verify everything. Once he has the actual subject to documents, then you guys can go over and sign that between both parties and officially have everything under contract, right? So negotiate, bring the attorney in. And then before you close, what we talk about, add insurance. Add insurance, right? And what I mean, add yourself as the additionally insured. Get on there, get her done. Okay. Then you're gonna close. Yay! Everybody's happy. It closed. We've weathered the storm. Not really, because it's just now getting started. So now you own the property. Finally, the seller is like, all right, well, let's see what happens. Because hey, man, what happened to, hey, my payment's due in 5 days. What you gonna do, right? You close. So then you're gonna implement whatever that investment strategy is for you. But you're going to set up the bank account. Sorry, set up the bank account first. Sorry. Close, set up the bank account. And so what I mean by set up the bank account, most, not all, most people set up their mortgage payments online, right? And it's typically auto drafted. Tim's coming into the meeting. You joining me? It's okay. He's just gonna be there.
So, yes, sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, you had to mute it because it was. No, you good. Yeah, it's like two dudes just over here trying to figure out computers. Like, how this thing works, man? What this look like? It's so bad. Don't worry about that, guys. All right. All right. So we got negotiate. Bring in the attorney. Additional, add yourself as the additionally insured. Close on that sucker and then set up the bank account, okay? And the bank account is, most of them are going to be doing it online, automatic payments. All right, great. Now you just need to go on. You do need to get their login information, right? And that's part of the discussions during the negotiations and so forth. That's also some of the forms that you guys are going to agree with to say, hey, you're going to give me access to this because I am just going to input my bank information or my checking account information to then make the payments automatically, right? Most people are like, well, how do you make the payments? Bro, it's your account. It's yours, Bubba. You are, as far as your portal, right? So that means you get access to it whenever you want. You can see if I'm making these payments. You can see that I'm doing the right things, right? Then you put in your bank account and it starts to just take out the drafts automatically. It's done. It's set up. Also doesn't trigger anything from the lender because they don't give a shit, right? They don't care what account it is. They just want to make sure that something's in there and it's paying. Okay. You get access to the owner statements, the mortgage statements, I'm sorry, immediately, all the 1099, the everything. You get it all, right? So you're good to go. Okay. So do it that way. It's highly recommended. If they do not bank online, you're essentially going to start a portal for them, right? And you're going to have access to it. That is what I suggest. You can definitely do it the old school, send in the mail, the checks and all that good stuff. But when you do things like that, that is going to, at least in my mind, and I could be wrong, but if you think about it, as you're writing these letters and these mails, you're having your name and a new address as the sender or return to, right? So it starts to kind of raise a little bit more flags and unnecessary attention, if you will. The online portal's cleanest, easiest. All parties can now verify that people are doing exactly what they said they're doing, and you get access to the documents instantaneously, which you need. All right, then boom, investment strategy, whatever it is, right? So we got our negotiate, attorney, add insurance, close, set up the bank account, implement your investment strategy, Airbnb, house hack, BRRRR, long-term, whatever the case is. From there, you would do your set up some sort of like check-ins, if you will, right? Make sure that you have some sort of scheduled check. I couldn't think of the word, right? We put it on the calendar. Scheduled check-ins where you're always following up and just giving updates. Where are we at now? Hey, everything's going according to plan. Hey, we're good. This is something that when you bring back into the beginning, but it's part of the negotiation, it's part of that trust but verify. Hey, don't worry about it. I'm taking care of it. But we're going to follow up once every 2 months, once every month, whatever it is, right? All that's negotiable. You're going to do your checkups, and then you are going to exit. You're going to exit. You're either going to sell or you're going to refi, and you're going to do it all over again. Okay. So that's pretty much step by step. The one thing that I know a lot of people ask, and actually, before I dig into it, I'm going to check the questions real quick, but we're going to talk. I got to write it down so I don't forget. It's who gets the tax benefit? Ooh. Okay, how are you finding subject to deals? Yep, I got you. Okay, how are you finding subject to deals? So it's pretty much like anything else. Now remember, in the beginning we mentioned that a subject to is just one more solution, right? It's just one more solution. A lot of people will start out and say, hey, I'm only doing subject to. Well, now what you've done is now you've talked to all these clients and you're trying to implement one strategy in a scenario where it may not make sense. So what I say is that you're still going to do all of your marketing that you're doing for whatever client that you're searching for. And then you're just going to sit down, allow that client to speak, and then you're going to see what solution best fits. So without going out too far on a rant here, when I started investing, I said I was going to be a wholesaler. So I went to every single client or potential seller, and I tried to buy a property at 50 cents of the dollar, because I was like, that's the only way I can wholesale. That's it. Then I started to realize, like, holy shit, I'm missing out on everything. What if I got licensed as a realtor and now that person, he's like, well, I'm ready to sell, but ain't gonna be no 50 cents on the dollar. Cool, bro, I'll list it. Or, hey man, I ain't trying to sell it like that. I mean, if you can pay what's on the mortgage, 70%, 70 cents on the dollar, if you can have it, bro, you can just have it. Oh, buy and hold now. You see what I'm saying? So just think about it like that. So continue your marketing, and then you have to make sure that the subject to just fits the solution, or is the solution to the problem. Does that make sense? Because you don't really want to just target subject to sellers. You could, which I'm doing a lot. I mean, it's painful. All right. What were some of the negotiating talking points? I missed that part. A little, yeah. So we got it recorded. You definitely can go back and check it out. But and I ain't write them down. But some of the things that you want to negotiate is essentially during that process, you're trying to build that trust, right? So they say, all right, we're talking. Well, what if you miss a payment? What if you foreclose, right? And so during that time where you're negotiating, that's where you're saying, well, hey, I put essentially a security deposit, 1 month's worth of mortgage, 2 months worth of mortgage, 3 months worth of mortgage payments into escrow. All right. I also, if I prove that I'm irresponsible and I've also put enough money in to reverse this entire situation and give you your property back. Right. I've also am going to check up once a month. That's part of the negotiating that I really was harping on, is they don't know you. They don't know you, right? So it's like, and then you're now asking them to trust you with their loan, right? That can be called due if there's a due on sale, right? That if they foreclose, it messes up their history, their credit report, all that good stuff. All right, let's see what else we got. Substitute trustee negotiations, the what ifs, put a month's mortgage, security, boom, boom. Yes, sir. Cam is checking it out. He's in there taking them notes, baby. All right. So next, let me drink a little sparkling water. I'm bougie, guys. All right. So the one thing I really wanted to touch, because a lot of people ask this and I almost skipped it, was who gets the tax benefits, right? Does the owner or do you? So I'm going to ask you guys, who do you think? I want to see what you guys respond. Who do you think gets the tax benefit? The owner or you? I'll give y'all a few seconds. What y'all think? Oh yeah, I'm fancy, Cam. Who do y'all think? Throw it in there. Who gets the tax benefits? Who gets the depreciation? Who gets to put their essentially their W-9, all that, like Schedule E, all that stuff? Who do y'all think? So we got one, we got the investor, we got the owner. We got the owner. Okay. We got 2 for the owner, 1 for the investor. We got 3 for the owner. Okay. So I guess the question is, who is the owner? Who's the owner, guys? I see that Nick says the owner since the mortgage is in his name, but who owns the property now and the subject to? Yeah. So LeVar says he thinks it's the trust that's on the deed, right? The investor is now the owner, guys. So all of you guys are correct. It is the owner, it's the investor, because the owner is on the deed. You see what I'm saying? I now own that property, right? So if I'm buying it from you, and all of a sudden I did the subject to, I've executed it, my company owns the property, I get the tax benefit. I get the tax benefit, right? Now this is all negotiable. It's all negotiable. As long as you lay it out up front and you want the seller, if that's your kind of your leverage, you can say, hey man, I'll give you the tax benefit. You could do that. You want to make sure that you get your CPA involved, okay? Because at the end of the year, when I took essentially that full, the end of the year mortgage statement and said, hey, all this interest was paid, blah, 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 blah. But I made the payments and I've owned the property since March of, whatever, 2018, all the way through the year, that is mine. Everything else before that, that was the seller's, right? And then moving into 2019, I owned it the entire time. I made the payments. Everything on there, I don't care whose name is on it, is mine. I own the property. I make the payments, okay? Again, you can have that. That could be like a nice little negotiation tool for you, but keep that in mind, because as you are sitting there trying to figure out your strategy of what is the best, should I rent it? Should I flip it? Should I do whatever? Keep that in mind. Maybe it doesn't cash flow heavy, but maybe you're having such a hell of a year in sales or something that you need something to kind of hedge your taxable income, right? Maybe you need something to report a loss through depreciation. And I know I do the quotes, and I don't mean that any like illegal things, but for all my tax nerds out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The depreciation, the expenses to get it right, all that can be a tax write-off, bumps you down to a whole new tax bracket, which will be a whole nother Pints and Properties if y'all want to nerd out with me. Oh, see, I got so excited. I lost my earbud. But yeah, it's typically you, the owner, right? But that is negotiable. All right, let's see what other things you guys got here. Uncle Sam doesn't care about your fancy footwork. Not really sure. I mean, I can dance. I've been known to cut a rug. All right, so it doesn't look like any more questions at the moment. But I mean, that's it, guys. We've covered a lot, right? And I don't want to keep going too much longer. I've already been running at about 45 minutes. I've been running my mouth. But we covered the subject to, AKA deed in lieu of, AKA mortgage stays in your name, but I get the property. All right, now we covered what it is, the ideal scenarios for short term. If they got to go quick and there's enough potential value, maybe we can do some forced equity, some sweat equity. Maybe we got it cheap enough. Maybe we can wholesale it real quick. Maybe we can fix and flip without having to buy a whole new property. We own it. Let's just add the rehab, sell it on the back end, right? Long-term styles, our Airbnbs, our buy and holds, all that good jazz. Then we talked about things to watch out for, the due on sale. How do you avoid it? Insurance, trust, so forth. And then step by step, how do you get this bad boy in the bag? Negotiate it. Then you get your attorney involved ASAP. Additionally insured, you close that sucker. Set up the automatic bank account, implement your investing strategy, do your annual, biannual, once a month checkups, and then you execute your exit strategy, AKA sell, refi, whatever the case may be. And bonus tip of the day, you, the new owner, gets to keep all of the tax benefits with the house, or you can negotiate it as leverage, right? So what kind of questions you guys got? What kind of questions we got? Okay, so what about sub-2 wraps? And so I'm assuming you're just talking about almost like a lease option, sandwich lease, so forth and so on, where you can use a sub-2 basically as your basis, right, to tax something else on the back end. So for example, subject to, now you own it, okay? You own the property. And now I'm going to find a new tenant who says, hey, man, I want to buy the property, but I don't have enough money. So we'll do something like maybe a lease option. They'll come over there and they'll rent for me for a year, right? And then they says, hey, by the end of the year, either you're going to buy it or you're not or whatever. Typically, that'll come with a non-refundable deposit up front. Boom, boom. Or maybe I did a sub-2 to acquire it. And then I did a rent to own, which is similar to a lease option, but they're purposely making payments to then own the home, right? So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but basically he's asking like, hey, can we do multiple layers of strategic investment strategies with the subject to? And the answer is absolutely yes. That's the beautiful thing about it. Subject to, the process of a subject to is purely on acquiring the property. It's the acquisition. What you do with it after you own it, oh man, you can do whatever you want. So many creative stuff. Creative ideas. And then Shelby's typing, but I'm technically Shelby right now, so I don't know how the hell she's typing. That's sweet technology, boy. Whoo, over my head. All right, what other questions you guys got? If you don't have any, you know, I'll stick around a little bit and sit here and try to look cute for you guys. Nothing. All right. Well, hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the content. Try to keep it fairly short. I hope you guys got some value out of it. And now, at a bare minimum, you can at least take this strategy with you and maybe implement it. Remember, there's one more tool for the tool belt, right? Go out there, continue to speak to your clients, your potential sellers, so forth and so on, and just always kind of keep this in the back of your mind. If you guys are really interested in moving forward with the subject to, I highly recommend that you seek out the attorney first, right? So do your research next week, whatever. Reach out to attorneys, talk to them. Hey, use both terms because it's different in different places. Hey, are you familiar with the subject to or a deed in lieu of? Cool. Have them walk you through their process, right? My specific attorney walked me through this process. Their process might be different for a different state. Who knows? The concept's the same, but the process might be different, right? So find that attorney, work through that magic, man, and let's get it, guys. Yeah, you guys are welcome. Thank you guys for sticking around. Excellent. Yep, I don't see any more questions. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you all for coming out, and I will see you guys on the flip side.